Welcome to the review of Wonder Woman number 34. Her pathetic brother Jason's controlled by my daughter Grail. It's actually a shitty comic and Jason's kind of a pussy, but whatever.
Hey guys, Comic Boom here to talk about Wonder Woman issue 34, and I'm going to throw in a review of Mr. Miracle number 4, a quick review of that, because these comic books actually have one thing in common. Because after I read Wonder Woman 34, I ended up in a state of depression that was very much like the state of depression that Mr. Miracle Man finds himself in issue 4 of his series. So that's the relation. You get depressed, so much so that you feel like you've experienced the anti-life, and then you could read Mr. Miracle and fit right in. So, hopping right to it, Wonder Woman 34. Guys, there's been a lot of big comic book news lately with Thor Ragnarok, the Justice League movie, Bendis going to Marvel. There's a lot of important things going on with the Marvel Legacy and the build up to Doomsday Clock in DC. And one of the news bits that's really falling under the radar is, of course, Wonder Woman's brother, Jason. I would have thought that this would have been something that would be a little bit more talked about than it is. But you know what? Having read it, good Lord, what a depressing tale. Guys, if you've, the few of you who have actually followed my YouTube reviews on this, Jason, who is Wonder Woman's brother, twin brother, is he's very disappointing. He's kind of like I said before, he's like a seriously depressed beta male, or he's like an omega male. Very depressed, just a very disappointing character all around. Not much has happened in the build up to this series. Now we're 3 issues in, and as predicted, it looks as if Jason is in fact I predicted that he was in fact probably going to be a villain, and it looks like he's a villain. He's probably manipulated by Grail and Darkseid, but nonetheless, we're 3 issues in, and he's still wearing his gay little capri pants. They've exaggerated his nose. He's got a bigger nose than he did in the previous 2 issues, so the art's a little off. But now they've deliberately made him look. He's taller than Wonder Woman. He's got a big nose, which I suppose is fine. He's still whatever. Apparently, he fights. He fights in blue capri pants. He's like a David Banner, but. It's like a David Banner. You know how the Hulk always had the purple pants, and they always turned purple whenever David Banner would turn into Hulk, his pants would always suddenly turn purple, and then Hulk would run around with purple blue jeans on. Well, this is kind of a job. I consider it sort of a play on that. Jason always wears blue capri pants and these gay little shoes, gay little capri pants, and he doesn't have any battle garb, and that's literally how he fights. Wow. But anyways, let's get into it. Guys, so a little bit of background on Jason. It appears that when Hippolyta was giving birth, and she of course gave birth to Diana, and they discovered that there was another baby, Hippolyta wanted to hide Jason away from the seeing eyes of the gods, and she called upon a man by the name of Glaucus, who is a member of Jason of the Argonauts. And she asked Glaucus to take care. She had one of her Amazon underlings basically smuggle Jason out into the ocean, where Glaucus essentially took the guardianship, if you will, of Jason, promising to raise Jason. And Hippolyta asked that Glaucus name him Jason. He is named after Jason of the Argonauts fame. Jason was raised by Glaucus, who is immortal. Glaucus became immortal from eating herbs. Glaucus, along with Hercules, was at one time a crewmate of Jason on his ship, and the Jason of the Argonauts adventures that you all read about in mythology. That's where all that stuff comes from. Glaucus gained his immortality from herbs, and he didn't gain his immortality from being bestowed immortality from a god, and he's not a god or a demigod himself. And so that's one of the theories as to why Hippolyta felt it more appropriate that Jason be raised by someone who's maybe has more humanity in him than as opposed to godhood, if you will. And in any event, So Glaucus raises Jason and basically decides to tell Jason. This is according to Jason. When Jason and Wonder Woman are having their conversation, Jason enlightens Wonder Woman upon what his life's been like. He's basically always stayed in the shadows. He claims to be impressed watching his sister Diana grow up. Glaucus did tell him that Wonder Woman was his sister, but he never revealed himself at first because he was afraid of the gods. He was somewhat scared of this situation. He said occasionally Hercules would visit him and Glaucus and his crewmates and would train him how to fight, and that Jason himself, like Wonder Woman, does have the ability to fly. And as they're getting to know each other, it's revealed that Jason is single. He's had many lovers in his life. They don't identify whether it's male or female, so one can imply from that what you will, because it's not clear whether for those who care about such things, about his sexuality, it's not clear. It's left open-ended. And it ends with it being made clear that it's all a trap, that basically Jason lures Wonder Woman into a particular area around the Asian Sea where suddenly Grail appears, and both Grail and Jason attack Wonder Woman, and it's clearly just a trap. Now, some things are amiss here. Jason goes from being a nice guy to suddenly stating that he's always hated Wonder Woman and he's going to inflict his revenge, and they're not going to, even though they defeat Wonder Woman at the end, Jason and Grail defeat Wonder Woman, they don't kill her because apparently they have plans for her, after which, when they're done using Wonder Woman for their nefarious deeds, which I'm sure involves somehow empowering Darkseid, Jason wants the privilege of killing his own sister. Now, some things are a little bit off here. One of the things that was clear in the first two issues is that Grail and Darkseid a young teenage Darkseid, did come across Jason before Wonder Woman did, very clearly. And it's probably fair to say they did some manipulating of Jason, so it might be that this is a little bit of misdirection on the part of James Robinson, the writer. But whatever it is, it's interesting. This is by far it's the best issue so far. It actually, we found out a lot of information about Jason. We found out, it was a dialogue heavy issue, but it ended on some action. So overall, it was a better issue than the first two, which I thought were lacking somewhat. But it's better than it was. I continue to remain disappointed with Jason. I would have liked to have seen him at least have a wardrobe change. So far, this is a very underwhelming character. I know I've been pretty hard on Jason, but good Lord. Another criticism I have of Jason, and it just seems to be something that happens in Wonder Woman comics, just relentlessly when it comes to adding characters to the Wonder Woman mythology, is anytime they try to add a male character, they somehow have to emasculate him or give him just a ridiculous amount of defects. Now, Jason himself, he's a nice enough guy. He's imperfect himself, but he seems like he's a tall guy. He's I think the reason why they gave him a big nose, I could criticize that a little bit, but I won't. Only because they've given him. If they didn't give Jason a big nose, he would look exactly like Bruce Wayne, who looks exactly like Nightwing, Batman, Superman. All of them all look identical. They all have white skin and dark hair. So the whole tall, dark, and handsome cliche, that is done to death in the DC universe. There's lots of characters. I mean, pretty much the entire Batman family, with the exception of Duke, they're all white males with the dark black hair. And so now here we have Jason, Wonder Woman's brother, who, because he's his twin brother, he's tall and he's dark, and I guess he's handsome, but he's got a big nose. So at least they have to have some way that he'll stand out from the typical DC white male, black-haired stereotype. His shipmates, though, they look like 3 of the 7 elves. I mean, his shipmates they look really odd. I mean, something is really off about his friends. Jason's friends look really odd. I mean, they really look like misshapen men of some kind. Like this seems really off. I don't mean to put down, midgets, or whatever you want to call them, midgets or little people, whatever the politically correct term is. Because let's face it, no matter what I say, I'm going to offend somebody. But it just seems really odd that it's it just seems off. It doesn't seem to be quite. This is an odd character. Jason is an odd character. I mean, he's a fisherman off the Asian scene. He looks like three dwarves as shipmates, and he's raised by an immortal Glaucus who apparently has died and is no longer raised him. So I don't know. We don't know how Glaucus died. But next issue, we're going to find out the true story of Jason to see what's going on. But in any event, this issue was better than the previous. It was better than the previous two. So it is what it is. I'm sure that teenage Darkseid has some nefarious plan for Wonder Woman, and we'll have to wait to see what it is. Because sooner or later, teenage Darkseid wants to end up badass, kick-ass. And isn't this an amazing figure? Good God, this is heavy. I could do my bicep curls with this thing. Anyways, but that's Darkseid. What do you expect? Right? Look at that. Isn't that a pose? Anyways, so that's Wonder Woman. It's not bad. It is underwhelming though. I can't really say I recommend this too strongly to people. So far, it's somewhat boring. I was expecting far more action, far more everything. It's very, very mediocre, very by the numbers still. But overall, I'm depressed with how disappointing Jason has turned out to be as a character. Now, speaking of depression, Scott Free and Mr. Miracle #4. You guys got to pick this up. This is I wanted to. There's been so many reviews on this online. I didn't want to give this a separate video. I'm just going to put it on the same one with Wonder Woman. This is again. This continues the scenario with Scott very clearly, I think, being infected by the anti-life equation. He's fighting through his depression, and he's still questioning what reality is. In this particular issue, it's obvious that in Scott Free's struggles, the people around him, in particular Big Barda, they're concerned about him. Meanwhile, Light Ray, who is another one of the gods, who is commanded by Orion, who's now High Father, to basically to call upon Scott because they want to put him on trial because they believe that Scott might be infected with the anti-life. And Scott Free, of course, Mr. Miracle, defied his orders in not killing Granny. That was something that ultimately Big Barda ended up doing, or so we think. But there's with Scott Free, Mr. Miracle questioning Orion and saying, are you infected with the anti-life last issue? It's quite clear that this is something that it's a concern to everyone, because Orion's concerned that if Mr. Miracle is infected with the anti-life, well then you got to execute him, you got to get rid of him. So they put him on trial here. This is a really good issue. Having said that, it was a little bit slow going. It's a little bit slow going, but with Mitch Gerard's art, with the continuous 9-panel grid, which has been talked about, and by the way, the 9-panel grid, you really see this coming back. I just read an excellent issue, a recent issue of Hawkeye by Kelly Thompson. She's sort of experimenting with the 9-panel grid as well. More and more, you see this more and more in comics. The 9-panel grid is coming back. It's because it is a very effective way of doing storytelling, but it doesn't always work for everyone. It doesn't always work for everyone, but it clearly works for this particular series. Where this series shines, Mr. Miracle shines, is with the dialogue itself and Mitch Gerard's art in really getting to the facial expressions of the characters and the dialogue and the emotions that are being conveyed. You really wonder just to what extent how much the anti-life has affected the people involved here. And just as a quick aside, going back to Wonder Woman, it might very well be that Jason is not the villain in Wonder Woman, or that he is being manipulated by the anti-life. It might be the anti-life that they used a little bit, or a weaker version of the anti-life to manipulate Jason. That might be what's going on in order to turn Jason into a villain. Because I'm really hoping that Jason doesn't remain a villain. Maybe he is. Maybe he's going to remain a villain. But I get a sense that he's been manipulated by Grail and by Darkseid. against Wonder Woman. I believe that probably a weaker version of the Anti-Life has been used by Teenage Darkseid in order to manipulate Jason here. And so that's my theory for Wonder Woman. I might end up being wrong on that. I'm hoping that's the case. But in any event, I think it's clear that the full-fledged power of the Anti-Life equation is on display here in Mr. Miracle. So check Mr. Miracle number 4 out. And that being said, guys, thanks for watching. Click the subscribe button, and Comic Boom out.